Well, hello from Stade de France, the business district on the outskirts of Paris, where Ireland have made their base ahead of Thursday night's Six Nations opening game against France, just around the Périphérique in the Stade de France. I'm Rory O'Connor. Cian Tracey is with me. We're braving the conditions in the rain, Cian. It's not exactly Paris in the springtime, but Andy Farrell has named this team, and it's a very interesting one.
It is. I'm kind of standing in under here trying to keep out of the rain. It's been a bit of team, I think, over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, I've come from Portugal, where Ireland did quite well, I think, to train in and around the storms that were hitting the country. And yeah, it's been very wet and could have a big impact on the game on Thursday, couldn't it? I think it's supposed to improve as the week goes on, but obviously we'll get in and talk about it. But an Irish scrum that's missing a lot of players, I don't think they would want to see dirty wet ball, potentially a lot of knock-ons and scrums. So yeah, what would you say Andy Farrell's mood was? He's just come out of the press conference there.
Yeah, I think he's trying to put a brave face on things, but I'm not sure I'm convinced by it. It's not a team he would have ever envisaged sending into Paris for an opening night game on a Thursday night in the Six Nations. I guess it was, maybe as well run through it. You got Jamie Osborne, a fullback. You have Tommy O'Brien and Jacob Stockdale, one of the big calls on the wings. He's picked ahead of James Lowe, who's fully fit, but it doesn't make it. And it's his first Six Nations appearance since 2021, which is a long time between drinks, especially when I know he's had injuries, but he's been in and out of squads. Ringrose McCluskey in the midfield. Sam Prendergast gets the nod at number 10 alongside Jemison Gibson Park, and it's the front row where you'd have the most concern. Tadhg Furlong doesn't make it. We're not surprised by that news, really. I know they were making positive sounds in Portugal. Jeremy Lockman gets the nod at the loose head side. He's been starting there for Munster. I guess that makes sense. It's Michael Milne on the bench a lot, with Dan Sheehan offering the experience and leadership in between. And then second row, as expected, Ty Byrne and Joe McCarthy. And then the big surprise maybe was that Cian Prendergast will play alongside his brother Sam. He'll start for the first time in a back row that also has Josh van der Fleer and Caelan Doris. And he's gone for a 6-2 bench on the split. So you had the news last night. What stood out to you when you kind of got wind of the team?
Yeah, I think the Tadhg Furlong news, I think you're right. Definitely they were the vibes on the ground in Portugal. And I know supporters and listeners listening to this will know that, like, we've danced this dance before, haven't we, with Tadhg Furlong?
That's what Farrell said.
Yeah, and I asked Sandy Farrell there, what was the latest on him, and they're sort of saying that they're confident he'll be available for Italy next week. But I think you'll always have to take a pinch of salt, unfortunately, just with the rate that Furlong's body has been breaking down. I think the team was probably well signposted, but I think Cian Prendergast is certainly the big talking point. I think Ireland were really impressed by what he did in November. I think they've been really impressed by what he's done since he's gone back to Connacht. He's now Connacht's captain, obviously. I thought he was very good against Leinster in obviously a losing team a couple of weeks ago at the opening of the Dexcon Stadium, and it's a huge opportunity for him. We know how much Andy Farrell likes to tap into the family aspect of things, and you can imagine that will be a big theme this week. The fact that the Prendergast brothers are going to be starting together for the first time. They have shared a pitch, but it's a big opportunity. I think they like Cian Prendergast, the grunt, a bit of a dog in him that he brings, particularly without kind of Peter O'Mahony in the last couple of years. So it's a huge opportunity. Cormac Izuchukwu wasn't quite ready to play. Ryan Baird is obviously out injured. I had sort of expected Ireland to go with Ty Byrne at 6 and with James Ryan starting. But as you mentioned, Rod, it's a pretty powerful 6-2 bench that they have to call upon.
Yeah, it's kind of, when you think about it, the kind of shape of the team Andy Farrell's been building towards, in terms of like Jamie Osborne and Thomas Clarkson, who starts at tight head. They went on the Lions tour almost to build their experience, to get them ready for occasions like this. And obviously Osborne has started big games for the fullback before, and he's been kind of one of the players that Farrell's been trying to get into his team or into his squad post World Cup. Prendergast is the one he's kind of anointed as his number 10, and I know there was strong pressure from Harry Byrne. He misses out entirely. Jack Crowley is on the bench, but this is kind of, there are elements of it that he's kind of been shaping towards for a while. Oh,
as the rain gets heavier,
we got some props, and I think that, like, there are elements of it that he would have liked to get some of these combinations onto the field at some stage, but I'm not sure he ever envisaged it being this week in this scenario. And I'm not sure he ever, truthfully, even though he was big enough Jeremy Lockman, ever envisaged going to Paris with Jeremy Lockman, who's been out of the squad since 2024, went to the World Cup. He's got 5 caps at the age of 30, and suddenly he is the one who all eyes are going to be on for that first scrum on Thursday night. Look, it's not his fault. The injuries, Andrew Porter, Paddy McCarthy, Jack Boyle, we knew them from a long way out. It was always going to be a big test for whoever was wearing that number 1 jersey. But I think that first scrum on Thursday is going to be just the main focus.
And particularly it's Carl Dixon is the referee. Like I said, as we grab our umbrellas with the rain coming down even heavier, if the conditions are like this on Thursday night, I think you're right. I think the first scrum will set the tone. But I think the loose head dynamic is fascinating, really, because like Munster have certainly seen Jeremy Loughman as their first choice loosehead. Obviously, Michael Millen made the move from Leinster tail end of the season with designs and being Munster's first choice. And I think, to be fair to Jeremy Loughman, I was over in Toulon a few weeks ago and he did very well against a powerful Toulon scrum. He got the nod obviously against Cast as well. But I think Ireland before this week had seen Michael Millen potentially as ahead of Jeremy Loughman. It was Michael Millen who went on the summer tour last year. Jeremy Loughman didn't go. But I think that Loughman is perceived as the better scrummager at this stage of their career. Michael Millen will certainly offer you more in the loose, and I think he's part of a bench that's going to be asked to come on and ramp things up because the French bench is quite strong as well.
It is. I mean, I think you're completely right about Loughman being the better scrummager, and he's a big player. Like, he's a big physical player. He's a specimen. He just needs to put it all together. I think he's got all the attributes, and Andy Farr was talking about how he has all the attributes to do it. He just needs to put it all together. Yeah. I think Milne adds a bit of punch off the bench as well. So, like as you mentioned, it is a punchy bench, but it's hard. I think it's hard to see this team. Like, what's their path to victory? I can't see it personally. What do you think they have to do to kind of, navigate this game, put France in the right areas and kind of negate what France have? Because France are bringing a lot of power and a lot of speed.
Yeah, we get on and talk about the French team in a sec. Obviously, I think it all starts with the set piece, and they're going to have to hold their own there. I think the selection of Sam Prendergast at 10 gave us an indication of Ireland are going to need to score tries, I think, in France to win. I think you look at the firepower that France have in their backline, in particular, Jalibert coming in with Antoine Dupont. They have the potential to score tries from anywhere, particularly at home. And I would imagine that played into Andy Farrell's thinking, look, we know this. He loves the attacking threat that Sam Prendergast brings from 10. And I would imagine that he's picked to try and score tries in its simplest form. Obviously, there's still question marks over Sam Prendergast's defence. And I think the likes of Josh van der Fleer in his inside, Stuart McCloskey, who we've kind of like glossed over, because I think even if Bundy Aki and Robbie Henshaw had been in the squad, I think Stuart McCloskey would have been nailed on to start. So Andy Farrell has picked a lot of guys who were playing well, but it's a massive task. Like you said, I don't think he would have imagined picking this team when he had set out a few weeks ago.
And I think this is what I'm going to be writing about today, is that the leaders in the team, your Doris's, Cian, Joe McCarthy's in exceptional form, so he doesn't really count, but Ty Byrne is a little bit out of form. Gary Ringrose is a player that he needs his best performance of the season by a distance, because I don't think he's been playing pretty well for Leinster.
We'll see more in attack from him, don't we?
Attack, but also in defence. He's been caught a couple of times. He hasn't had an unbroken run in the team. I think France, with the pace that they have on the edges with Adesogbe and Louis Bilbray, I think, and the creativity they have inside them with Jalibert and even Thomas Ramos coming in.
The two Bordeaux centres as well, Moefana and Deporter.
There's so much threat there, and Ringrose has been an excellent defender for Ireland, really the linchpin of that defence. Obviously McCluskey will give the physicality, but it's Ringrose's decision making that makes that defence work, and he's got a unfamiliar combination, a back three that's never played together outside him. That's, I think, where Ireland are vulnerable. But if Ringrose, if Ty Byrne, if Dan Sheehan, Caelan Doris, Jemison Gilson Park, like those 5 players can just hit form when they've been kind of scratching around looking for form. Ireland need them to have huge games and control things and make the more familiar players around them feel good about themselves. If those players are struggling, then I don't know how we can expect players with very little experience or who've been out of the setup for a long time to thrive. So I think there's a huge onus, and like Andy Farrell puts a lot of store on what he can get done in Portugal to get those players who've had tough provincial seasons moving and playing well and in flow. It's a hard place to find your form.
Yeah, and like they didn't do that in November. We had heard a lot when they went to Chicago earlier that their training had gone very well. Now obviously the players have way more game time under their belts now compared to what they did at the start of the season. And just to go back to that bench, I think, they've got 2 like really good lions in the bench in James Ryan and Jack Cohn, and they're going to have big impacts. Nick Timoney is another guy who has really earned his selection. I think a lot of people would have been hoping, to see Edwin Adogbo, but the word is, and Andy Farrell was kind of explaining there at the press conference, that it's his first time in camp. It's a lot of information to take on, but I'd be fairly confident that we will see Edwin Adogbo make his debut in this Six Nations, potentially even against Italy next week. But Timoney is another form selection, and like a lot of supporters want to see new players getting their opportunities. Now they have their opportunity, and it's up to them to take it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Ronan Gallagher is another one.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Finlay Beelum went on that Lions tour as well, and he'll give experience. With Milne coming on, that's probably a kind of a nice balance of an experienced player with two experienced scrummagers with a less experienced scrummager. So there's strength in the 23 as we talk about it. Talk to me about France, though. They've named their team just before we started recording. It's along the kind of lines that have been flagged in the French media, although the bench is a little bit different. But kind of where do you see, kind of what are the big selections from Fabien Galtier?
Like, I think this is the best time to play France. I'm fully aware that, you know, they could put a big score on Ireland, but generally Ireland start Six Nations quite well, and France can take a couple of weeks to get up to speed, particularly the halfback partnership. Look, Antoine Dupont, it's his first game back for France since he injured his knee. Like, it's going to be a huge occasion for France, but I don't think it's a guarantee that Jalibert comes in and they hit it off immediately. There's a reason why Ntamak has been selected for so many years alongside Dupont, is because he's happy for Dupont to be the main man, and I'd be curious to see how that goes. Jalibert has been one of the foreign players in Europe, but in terms of French team, I think the one surprise is maybe that Dorian Aldegheri is getting the nod in the front row. I don't think it's a pack that is fearsome, really. Obviously, poor old Winnie Antonio isn't involved. I think he's a big loss. You look at Thibaut Flamand, he's a big loss. I still don't understand why Gregory Aldred isn't in the team. I think Anthony Gelange is a super player, but I'm not sure number 8 is his best position. And I look at the back 5 of their pack, and I think it's a little imbalanced. So I imagine Ireland will be trying to get after them there.
And Ireland, I think, will play a lot of territory. I think with Sam Prendergast kicking long and on,
trying these conditions,
these conditions, make the French make mistakes. I think they're going to look at that Leinster template of kind of the one battle after another season that the Leinster have been going through, and thinking, if we can get them down the stretch 60 minutes in, we have a lot of experience coming off that bench, but it's up to the starters to get them there. The real privilege for us, I think, on Thursday night will be watching Antoine Dupont live, but also getting to see Louis Beret again. I mean, Ireland needs to limit his involvements, which is a very tricky thing to do, because once he gets time and space, as we saw in Dublin last year, it doesn't take much.
Yeah, and this is something that James Ryan had spoken about before we left from Portugal, that like Ireland's calling card when they're at their very best is starting fast, and that kind of has deserted them over the last while. But if there's any place that you need to start well, it's in France, particularly opening night of the Six Nations. I think back to 2 years ago, I know the game was in Marseille, but I think Ireland went out to a 10-0 lead and then a 17-3 lead. If you can quieten the French crowd down, you know, don't let them get up ahead of speed like we talked about that first scrum. Don't let them maul you back in the first maul. If Ireland can do those things, they'll give themselves a fighting opportunity. But it's going to be a tall order, isn't it?
It is. Well, we'll have all the coverage. We need to get back into town.
And out of the rain.
Out of the rain. The Ireland players are on a day off. We've seen a few of them going for taxis. They need to get into town away from this. But it's not a great day for them to explore Paris. Maybe a bit of culture on the cards. You never know. But I'd say they'll be drilling down into their detail ahead of Thursday night's game. We'll be back from the Stade de France tomorrow. We have loads of coverage on the Irish Independent website and in print over the next couple of days as we build up towards Thursday's game. Thanks a million for joining us.